Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going through the 26 books that I hope and plan to read in 2026. I was talking too fast, I got too excited. But apparently it's like a fantasy version of Bridgerton. But I know I'm going to love them, but I've been avoiding them. I just have high hopes. If we get an Isaiah Road cameo, I have a very conflicting relationship with Abby Jimenez. I would be scared to know how many TBRs I've put this on. I'm pretty much putting this on here for Charlotte, so if you're watching this is for you. I bet you I'm gonna have to put it off for years, and I'm gonna love it. I would hope that it's a 5-star. She was so stubborn and I kind of loved that. I know this is not a new phenomenon. I'm very late to the party. It's just sat there collecting dust. I feel like this is a relatively common thing to now do where you have 25 books to read in 2025, 26 books to read in 2026, and I do love using it as a way to create my yearly TBR. I do feel like we're gonna get to a point where we can't do it anymore. What are we gonna do, 50 books in 2050? It's just not really gonna work, but for now, I love it. I would say my minimum amount of books that I'll read for a year is around 50 to 60. I've had years where I've read like 140, which is ridiculous. And then I've had years where I've read 50, 60. So I think in 2025, I had various reading slumps, various times of not reading, and I still read 50 to 60 books. So I think that 26 books for a TBR is okay. I don't know if we'll actually get to all of the books, but these are just what's on my radar. But I do think it's really interesting to see the books I put on my radar now, and then towards the end of the year, if my taste still includes those books, because I've definitely done some yearly TBRs before where I've put books on the start of the year and then a few months later I'm not gravitating towards it. And so I think that is really interesting about a yearly TBR, is that so much can change in a year. But ideally these are the 26 books that I would love to read in 2026. First up, we've got The Rose Bargain. This is I don't even really know how to describe it, but apparently it's like a fantasy version of Bridgerton. It's that season vibe where they're like, this season, this Bridgerton, you know, that vibe, but in like a whimsical, cozy fantasy setting, which sounds amazing because I think some of my favorite fantasies at the moment are the cozy, whimsical type. And I recently watched Bridgerton and loved it, and that's pretty much why I purchased this book. And so I would love to read it. I would love to read it in the summertime. It's kind of giving spring. I would have loved to have read it in spring, but summer will have to do. The next two books kind of go together because they're book 2 and 3 in the series, but that is Us Against You and The Winners by Frederick Backman. I love Frederick Backman. He is one of my favorite authors. I read Beartown quite a while ago now. I fear I might have to reread it before going into these two, but I've read a lot of Frederick Backman since, and I've just been putting off these two books because I know the emotional damage that's gonna happen. If you have read Beartown, or any Frederick Backman book for that matter, you will know that there is just so many layers and so much emotional damage and trauma that happens, and I just don't think I've been in the right headspace to dive into these two, but I know I'm going to love them, but I've been avoiding them, and I don't want to avoid them any longer. So hopefully we get to these. No, I will get to these in 2026. Next is a new release that is coming out in 2026, and there are a few, I would say a small handful of books on this TBR that are new releases of some of my favorite authors that I definitely will get to, and so I wanted to include them on here because I would love to read them as they come out. And that is And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. This is the book that follows First Time Caller. It was just one of the most fun, heartwarming, classic rom-com type books, and I absolutely loved it. It reminded me of that old school classic movie rom-com, and I absolutely loved it. In that book, we got a preview of the dynamic of the two characters that our next book is about. I think it's the weather boy and the girl that works at the weather station. I don't really remember their names, but I remember loving their dynamic and loving that male main character. And so I'm so excited for their book to come out. I think it's in January or February. I'll put the release date on the screen, but I'm so excited for when that one comes out. Next is a book that is on my physical TBR, but there are a few here that are in a box somewhere at my parents' house because I'm in the middle of moving. That is Belladonna. I bought this book at least a year ago when it was going sort of viral, or a lot of my friends were reading it and loving it, and I just never got around to it, but I really want to read it, and I think I'll save it for autumn. It was on my autumn TBR this year, didn't get to it because I was sort of reading other series at the time, but I would really love to get to it. I've heard amazing things, especially about the third book. Yeah, anyway, I would love to start and read this whole series, but last year I made the ignorant and naive mistake of putting entire series on my TBR and then not wanting to read the first one, and then that's 3 books on my TBR that I can't tick off. So if there are a series I want to get to this year, I have just put the first book on the TBR, so I would love to get to the whole series. This year really taught me that I love reading series in close succession. So if I do read Belladonna, I would like to read book 2 and 3 close-ish after to really get the full experience. But I've just put the first one on my TBR. There's a couple others that are like that. That's just what we're doing this year. I feel like that'll be much smarter because then if I don't get to Belladonna, it's not like I can't cross off 2 other books on my TBR. Next up is a book that is possibly one of the more highly anticipated books on this TBR, and that is Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. I bought this when I was in the US at Barnes & Noble. It is my only Barnes & Noble special edition. I have been waiting to read it properly and devour it. I love Stephanie Garber. I love the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and this book just is kind of giving The Great Gatsby. No idea if it actually is, but the cover is giving Great Gatsby, and I love The Great Gatsby. I was talking too fast, I got too excited. Oh, that's better. Anyway, I will actually be reading this one in January because it is my January book club, the book club that I run with my bestie Charlotte. We put a few books in a poll to pick our January book, and Alchemy of Secrets was a clear winner, which just shows that a lot of people are excited to read it. And so I'm so excited to read this with all of our besties and be able to talk about it at the end of January. That's so exciting. I'm so excited. I'm really planning to sort of romanticize this. I think because I bought it in Barnes & Noble and it's a book club book, I just have high hopes, which is sometimes bad to do going into a book, but I am really excited. Next up is a book that I do not own on my physical TBR, but I have seen such amazing things about, and I have had some friends who really loved it, and that is, what's it called? The Very Secret Society of Regular Witches. I've been loving magical realism as a genre lately, and so this is just something that caught my eye. I don't really know much about it. I know it was popular quite a while back, but I had a close friend read it lately and she thinks I'll really love it. So I just thought I'd put it on my radar for 2026, and it's a book that I would love to pick up. Next, we've got a book that I would be scared to know how many TBRs I've put this on and then I've not read it, and how many times I have rented it on my Libby and not listened to it. It's a little embarrassing at this point, and that is On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. I bought this years and years and years ago, like way before I started Bookstagram, way before I started posting content. I've owned this book. It is not a big book. Tell me why I've never picked it up. Exactly. I, at this point, don't even know what it's about anymore, but I just want to read it. I just want it to experience it, and I bet you I'm going to love it. I bet you I'm going to have put it off for years, and I'm going to love it. It's also giving the perfect autumn vibes. It looks like a quick read. I've also been loving literary fiction lately, so this is a perfect option. The synopsis says, this is a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. Written when the speaker is in his late 20s, the letter unearths a family's history that began before he was born. It tells of Vietnam, of lasting period of impact of war, and of his family's struggle to forge a new future. And there's a bit more information. But essentially, that's a synopsis of this book. I've seen amazing things. I bought it so long ago, I just need to read it. And so I'm putting it on the 2026 TBR because my goal for this year is to finish this, just quietly. I'm not gonna be hard on myself if I don't, but I would just love the feeling of getting to the end of the year and completing this TBR. So if I put it on here, I have to read it. It is not long. It's 242 pages. Get a grip, Caitlin. You can read this. This is another book that I've had on my TBR for a very long time, and that is One Dark Window. I feel like this, again, is another one that went viral on TikTok and Instagram. I purchased it with the hopes of reading it soon, and then it's just sat there collecting dust. I feel like most people know what this is about, but if you don't, I think that the fog in the town is a character, and it's like a spooky, ghostly, mystery fantasy book. I really don't know anything about it. The second book, Two Twisted Crowns, is also out, and it's just a duology, and I love a duology because in a fantasy trilogy, you end up with all this fluff, all this back and forth. I love a duology. I'm going to read this duology this year, but same thing, I've just put the first book on the TBR because A, I don't own the second book yet. I've almost bought it so many times and forced myself not to because you haven't even read the first book. What if you don't like it? I've done that so many times, and then I end up with books on my TBR that I don't read. We're not doing that this year. We're clearing our physical TBR. We're not adding to it insanely. Anyway, it's something different, out of my comfort zone. I haven't read and loved a lot of fantasy this year. I've read a lot of magic and dystopian and whatnot, but not fantasy, I would say. So I'm a little nervous. It's definitely out of my comfort zone, but it's something different, and I've been craving different lately. And so hopefully we get to this year. Next is a book that I have not had on my TBR for a very long time. My friend Charlotte got it for me for my birthday because she loves this author, and I've never read this author before, and it's a little daunting, but I have seen lots of good things, and that's All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I do like a slow burn, but the way that people talk about her slow burns kind of scares me. This is a small town romance. That's all I know. It says a landlord. Okay, so I think that our female main character, Aurora, moves back to a small town that was once her home, and she's sort of starting a whole new life, and she has a landlord. So she must be renting out, and the landlord is the male main character. That's all the back of the book is giving me. I've seen really good things. I know that, is it Heather McClary? I don't know, is that her last name? She loves Mariana Zapata, and she loved this book, and she rereads it all the time, and Charlotte loves it. So I'm pretty much putting this on here for Charlotte. So if you're watching this is for you. you. Next is a book that I wish so strongly that I purchased when I was in Barnes & Noble in New York and did not. And now I can't get the physical copy with the cover that I want in Australia right now. And that is Broken Country. I don't even know the author, but I'll put it up here. I've just seen really good things about it and I loved the hardcover and I looked at it in Barnes & Noble, but my suitcase was already heavy and I could just only bring home so many books. But I think the paperback version with the same cover is coming out in March in Australia. So I'll probably wait till then and I'll buy the physical copy then and read it. But again, I've just been loving literary fiction. I've seen amazing things about this. I kind of know nothing, but I sort of love going into some literary fictions, not knowing what's happening, and then you just learn about the story without having any sort of spoilers. I know that like a synopsis isn't a spoiler, but sometimes it is. Sometimes the synopsis on the back of the book is just as bad as a movie trailer. So I don't know anything about it, but I've seen lots of good things from people's reviews that I trust. So it's going on the TBR for the year. Next, we have a book that I think is also in a box at my parents' house, and that is Heartbreak Hotel. It is a romance that I've seen a lot about recently on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot, and I've seen some friends read it and love it. And I bought it while I was overseas because I liked the cover. I don't know much more about it. I'm assuming it's someone that owns a hotel or a bed and breakfast situation, but it looks fast paced. It looks pretty short. I think it would be a perfect palate cleanser, and I would love to read it soon whilst it's still sort of new and out in the world. Next, we have a book that I'm kind of nervous about, and that's the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. I have a very conflicting relationship with Abby Jimenez. I love her series that's Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer. They're all 4.5, 5-star, 6-star reads, and I absolutely am obsessed with it. I read The Friend Zone. I liked it but didn't love it. It just wasn't as good as the other series, and then the plot of this one I'm a little nervous about, and so I've just been putting it off. But I do want to get to the rest of her backlist, so I'm putting this on the TBR. I'm not putting book 3, but essentially I can't really tell you anything about this book without giving away the ending of The Friend Zone. So if you don't want The Friend Zone to be spoiled by Abby Jimenez, don't read the back of this book because it will spoil it for you. Like, just what happens at the end of that book and who this book is about makes me really nervous if it's not done well, but I will give it a go, and if I'm not liking it, then I'll DNF it. I feel like if you DNF a book, you can cross it off your TBR. Like, I tried to read it. We tried our best. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm not manifesting DNFing and hating this book. I'm just a bit nervous about it, but it's been on my shelf for way too long that it needs to go on the TBR so that I at least try and pick it up. Next, we have Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I recently read the first Emily Wilde book, and like I said earlier, with series, I'm trying to read them close together, so I would love to read this earlier in the year. I thought it was so cozy. It was so whimsical. We're following these two, I guess they're academics, but in a fantasy world, and they're writing research papers and research articles and books. They're doing research on fairies and different types of fairies, and it's whimsical, and there's magic, and there's drama, and there's a little bit of romance. Like, I would say it's a subplot. It's definitely part of it. I just thought it was hilarious. I thought that the main character was so funny, and I thought she was so stubborn, and I kind of loved that. I loved that she was stubborn and he was cocky, and it was just this like funny dynamic, and it was sort of like nothing I'd really read before, and I would love to continue the series. So this one I think will be read very early in the year, and then I haven't put book 3 on the TBR, but again, like I said, if I'm trying to read series quickly, hopefully book 3 will be read closely after this one. Another new release that I am so excited about that I've put on the TBR is Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune. I have only read 2 Carly Fortune books. I didn't read her first 2 releases, but I have read This Summer Will Be Different and One Golden Summer, and I absolutely loved both of them. I thought that they were fun but emotional, perfect summer reads, really, and so I'm so excited for her new release. Again, I don't really know anything about it. I just know that it's coming out next year. Don't even know when. Again, I'll put the release date next to the book, but I'm so excited. I just loved her writing. I've loved her newest releases. I'm not sure if I'll go back and read her first 2 books because I've seen less good reviews about them and more critiques, I would say. So it's not high priority for me to go back and read her backlist, but I am excited for her new release. Next is a book that is also in a box somewhere at my parents' house. I don't know how half my TBR is that, but that's okay. It's Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Now, this is one that scares me a little bit. I have not managed to become a Sally Rooney girl, and I'm not sure if I ever will be, but I want to give it a go. I've only read Normal People, and it was fine. I didn't love it. Like, I wasn't obsessed with it the way that some people are obsessed with it, but I did enjoy it, and I thought it was good and different. I think I read it when I was really into romance exclusively, and so because it's like a bit of a different romance, I wasn't obsessed with it. But now that I'm reading a lot more literary fiction, I think is a better time to try a new Sally Rooney book, and so I'm going to try Intermezzo, see how we go. I do own the physical copy, but I might audiobook it because I just hate that she doesn't use punctuations and like quote marks, because how do you know who the hell's talking? Anywho, we've then got another book that came out in 2025 that I have not read yet, and that is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Similar to Sally Rooney actually, where I've read like 1 or 2 books of Taylor Jenkins Reid and just haven't become fully obsessed, but some of my friends love her. And so I feel like I'm missing something, and maybe when I read the books a couple years ago, I just wasn't, I'd say my reading palette hadn't developed enough, and so I would love to give it another go. And I've seen so many good things about Atmosphere, so I thought that would be a good one to at least start with. And then I do have I have one other of her books on my physical TBR, and she has such a large backlist, so if I do like Atmosphere, I think then I will go through and try and figure out her backlist and see if it's something that I would like to keep reading. There is a book that I've had on my physical TBR for a very long time that I kind of just forgot about until I was recently watching Sarah Crowley's Bookmas, and she was rereading this book. Was it in Bookmas or was it after Bookmas? I think it was picking her December TBR. I don't really remember. Anyway, she was talking about it again because she was rereading it because she loves it. And that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Is that her name? Yeah. And when she was describing it, I just kind of forgot what the plot of this book was. I know that it was viral ages and ages ago and that lots of people love this book. I know this is not a new phenomenon. I'm very late to the party. But when she was describing it, it just sounded right up my alley of all the other fantasies that I have loved recently. And so having that more heist dystopian situation instead of fantasy fairy situation. Essentially, I feel like I'm over the copy-paste ACOTAR situation. I feel like we've moved on from that. It doesn't do it for me anymore, but I loved things like Hunger Games and Harry Potter and this like magical or dystopian vibe. So I'm so excited to get into this. Same thing. I would love to read Crooked Kingdom not long after it, but I'm not putting it on the TBR. It is kind of thick and the writing is not massive. So I think it could be a bit of an adventure, but I am really excited and I think I will love it. So I want to read it in 2026. Another book that I purchased while I was overseas in New York that I would love to read and have been dying to read and just haven't really gone around to it is These Summer Storms. When this came out in American summer, I saw so many people reading it and loving it, but it was Australian winter, and so I wanted to wait till Australian summer to read it. We're only a few weeks into summer, so I've still got a couple months left, but I'm so excited. I love the hardcover. From what I've heard about it, it's more of a women's fiction emotional romance than a romance. It's exclusively, and so I'm really excited. I feel like that is right up my alley, and I've seen some people that I really trust, like Taylor, Destiny, girlies that I have very similar taste to, essentially loved this book. So I've got very high expectations. Would hope that it's a 5-star. I would love this to be a 5-star because I haven't had a 5-star in a very long time, and I reckon I'll read this in January, February, sometime then, so I'm very excited. Another new release that I'm so excited about is In Her Own League by Liz Tomford. If you know me, the Windy City series is a top tier romance series for me. Play Along is, bar Emily Henry, Play Along is probably my favorite romance book of all time, and I'm not sure it will ever come off that pedestal. And there is a character from this series that mainly comes into Caught Up and Play Along, and that is Monty, Miller's dad. When I found out he was getting a book, I was so excited because this whole time I thought, how cool would it be if we got a Monty book? And so many people were talking about it, and Liz Tomford listened, and we're getting a Monty book. I'm so excited. If you haven't read the Windy City series, essentially it's an interconnected sports romance series. There are 5 books and they all follow a different sports star in this friend group. It's very found family, very wholesome, a bit more emotional than your typical rom-com. Each character sort of has their own journey that they're going through, as well as the romance itself, which I think is what I really love about it. But I think one of my favorite things really is the found family, and so the fact that A, we're getting a Monty book, insane, but B, we're probably gonna get snippets. If we get an Isaiah Road cameo, like how are we not? Because essentially Monty works for the baseball team Isaiah Rhodes plays for. So if we get a cameo, I'm so excited. Liz Tomford can do no wrong in my mind when it comes to sports romances. So I am so excited. Essentially the second that one comes out, I'm reading it. So it's pretty safe to put on the TBR. Next, we've got The Bodyguard, which again is a book that I have in a box somewhere at my parents' house. I don't know why I've been putting it off for so long. I just don't know if rom-coms are really what I'm reaching for at the moment, but it looks really short. It looks fast paced. I remember hearing good things about it. Essentially, I think it's a fake dating situation. The girl is actually his bodyguard because he's like a famous person, and they have to go home, but the guy doesn't want to worry his family about why he needs a bodyguard, so then they fake date. I think that's what the book's about. Sorry if I'm wrong. I just think it would be easy to read, and it's been on my TBR for so long, like my physical TBR, and so I think that I really just need to read it or give it a go. So it's going on the yearly TBR. Next is a book that I also don't own, but it came out in 2025, and that is Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. This is book 4 in the, I think it's called Vancouver Storm series. The first book is Behind the Net, and then The Fake Out, and then I think The Wingman, and then Gloves Off. I liked Behind the Net. I loved The Fake Out. One of my favorite sports romances after the Windy City series is The Fake Out. I think if you like Isaiah Rhodes, read The Fake Out. And then The Wingman. I didn't love The Wingman, and so it's kind of put me off continuing the series, but I really loved the writing and the world and the characters in general. I think it is sort of second place to me as far as a sports romance series that's got a found family interconnected situation. So I really do want to continue it. So I've put it on here. I don't own it physically. I will probably just read it as an ebook and see how I go. And if I like it, then maybe I'll get it myself, but I would at least like to try it this year. Next, we have another Fredrik Backman book, which I again have owned for so long. And I've read so many of his other books now that I absolutely love. And I've just never picked up Anxious People. I don't know why. You just know when you have those books in your TBR that you have forever that you never pick up. It's one of those. It's been collecting dust. It's been turning yellow, and it needs to be read. It is going on this TBR. It is going to be read. He is one of my favorite authors. I love his writing. I don't know why I don't want to pick it up. I don't have any excuses other than that it's been in my TBR forever. That's not an excuse, that's the problem. Anywho, this is another Fredrik Backman book, literary fiction. I think it's to do with an apartment complex and like New Year's Eve and different people buying up apartments in this apartment complex. Pretty much most Fredrik Backman books are kind of like character studies where nothing really happens, but by the end of the book you end up feeling like it's a real story and the characters are real, and so I'm so excited. I definitely want to pick this one up. I've read, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Fredrik Backman books, but I want to go through his entire backlist because I think he is just outstanding, and so this one definitely needs to be read because I've owned it for years and never read it. One of the other romances, which a lot of these aren't really romances now I'm realizing, I do think I'm shifting away from loving romance as much as I used to, but one that has been on my eye, highly recommended by some of my friends, is Not in My Book by, is it Katie Holt? Katie Holt. I planned to read this when I was in New York because it's set in New York and I didn't get to it. But essentially I've had this compared to Beach Read, is what I'm hearing. It's two rival writers and it's set in New York and they kind of aspiring, disliking each other kind of dynamic. And obviously it's a romance, so we see that unfold. I want to get to it. My friend Tegan absolutely loved it and recommended it to me. She thinks I'm gonna love it. And it's been sitting on my shelf and I'm so annoyed. I didn't read it when I was in New York, but I just didn't really do much reading. It was so fast paced and we're traveling and whatnot. So it's on the TBR for the year. I would absolutely love to get to it, and I don't know, it just looks fun and the cover's so cute, so it's going on the TBR. Another book that is in a box at my parents' house is The Co-op by Tara Dewitt. I don't know how many books she has, but I own 2 of them. I have Savor It and The Co-op, and my friend Anna loves The Co-op, so I really want to try and read that. I did actually start it in 2025. I think I read 2 or 3 chapters and I didn't DNF it, but I just sort of put it down. I had other things I was reading at the time, so I would really love to read it. I think it's another one where the characters don't like each other. I don't know much about the plot, but again, it's quick and fast paced. It looks really short, and I think it's a romance that I could definitely enjoy based on, I know Anna's reading tastes and mine align quite a lot, and so I'm really excited to read that one, so it's on the TBR. Next we've got another favorite author of mine, which is Holly Jackson. I love A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I love her young adult thrillers, and this year she came out with an adult, is it thriller or mystery? I assume it's a thriller. I have just been putting it off. I haven't reached for it. I don't think I've been reading this genre as much, and adult thrillers kind of scare me. I don't know, I love a young adult mystery, but sometimes thrillers just, it's a bit much. You know, I can't read it before bed. I kind of will get nightmares. I'm a little bit sensitive in that regard, and so I've been putting this one off, but I would really love to read it. She's one of my favorite authors, and I think the way that she writes mysteries and thrillers is so fun and so well done. So if I'm gonna like an adult thriller, it's likely written by Holly Jackson. Final book that's going on my TBR for 2026 is No Matter What by Cara Bastone. I fell in love with her writing this year. I read Ready or Not and Promise Me Sunshine both this year. Absolutely loved them. She became one of my new favorite authors for romances. She just has a way of making you cry one second, laugh the next, fall in love with characters, talk about such intense themes like grief and loss and hardship and friendship and conflict and all these things, but in such a simultaneously sensitive to do the topic its justice, but also lighthearted that you're kind of laughing. And I just absolutely love her writing, and so I assume it's going to be the same in her new book. I haven't read the synopsis because sometimes I like to go into those kind of books blind, but I am very, very grateful and appreciative to have an advanced copy of this book. I don't think it comes out till maybe March. I'm not really sure, but I've got the advanced copy sitting in my net gallery and I've just been dying to read it. So that is definitely going to be read in 2026. So it's very safe to put that on the TBR. That is the 26 books that I plan to read in 2026. I am so excited by so many of these books. Some of them have been on my TBR for a very long time that I really would like to just see if there's a hidden gem in there that I absolutely love. And some are new releases of my favorite authors that I cannot wait to get to. So I'm so excited. I definitely will include a bunch of these books in reading vlogs throughout the year. year. I've already got some planned, but I'm sure I'll be able to spread them out throughout the year. So fingers crossed, we're gonna be able to read all 26 books, but I guess we're just gonna have to find out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.